Hey, it's the John and Ken Show. John Cobelt and Ken Champo. Welcome, everybody.
That's right. We're back. Everybody's back. Were you here last week, Terry Ray Elmer? Nope, you were not. All right, then everybody's back and strong. And the first question I have for you, and I thought of this almost instantly yesterday, Terry Ray Elmer. Did your cat know that?
Yes, he did.
What, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So let's look at this like a court of law. Let me ask the question first, then you can
establish the foundation.
Yeah, she just jumped right ahead. First row girl, hand up. Yeah, she did. Well, the question is, Terry Ray Elmer told us some time ago, probably after the Haiti earthquake, that this cat of hers, it's a male or a female?
Male.
It's a male. Seems to be able to detect earthquakes a day ahead of time, is it?
Yeah.
All right.
No matter
I don't
how
know if
far
there's a
away.
time period.
Yeah, no matter how far away they are.
He's psycho.
You were insistent that this cat is always right.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened then this weekend?
I was cooking yesterday morning because we were having people over for brunch. He kept jumping up and sitting in the middle of the table, would not leave the room. I put him out like 4 times, and he snuck back in, would not stop complaining.
And this is not normal behavior.
No, normally he's just laying on the couch.
Does he act the same way before each earthquake?
He just does weird things. He jumps on the furniture. He won't leave you alone. He weaves between your legs when you're trying to do something.
But there's no
Steps under your
pattern
feet.
where you instantly recognize he's predicting an earthquake.
We're starting to figure that out now. Because I told you, the rest of the time he does nothing. He's like a total slug. He's like part of the furniture. Very rarely moves. I mean, he moves from one spot to another.
Does it vary with the intensity of the earthquake? Meaning a big earthquake, he's crazier?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
I don't know how he predicted the Haiti earthquake.
I don't know either. But he just gets really annoying.
And will he even do this when you have like a more local 4-point-something, 3-point-something earthquake? Or it's usually a bigger one? Because you said Chile, too, he did this, right?
Yes, he did.
That's right. Haiti and Chile.
I know.
That's what we started talking about after Chile. Right.
And then the Mexican quake, and it was hours in advance, right?
Yes, and it's really stupid how you don't finally pick up on it. Because I was just griping and complaining yesterday morning. I was like, get him out of here. He's making me crazy. He won't leave me alone. He won't. And then yesterday afternoon I went, oh my God.
What's his name?
Oh, it's weird.
It's a dirty name?
No. Okay, if I tell you, will you let me explain it?
Wow.
Sure.
This is going to be good.
His name is Ron.
Ron?
Yes.
Oh.
And his name is Ron because my son was like 4.5 or 5 when we got him.
Yeah.
And his brother. And we were coming home from the pound, and I said, no, these are boy kitties, so you have to give them boy names. So I named them Ron and Dan.
Ron and Dan. Okay.
He was 4.
I'm always intrigued when people name their animals people names. You know, usually animals are things like Lucky and Skippy. And
Have you
sometimes
called...
people name their animals after people names, like Ron.
Now he's referred to as Psycho Kitty.
Psycho Kitty.
So have you? I mean, we should get some media attention for Ron, because if this is the 3rd earthquake this year that he's predicted.
Yeah, so somebody comes over the camera and he's sitting on the couch.
And you said this goes back though beyond this year.
Oh yeah.
Well, what you need to do next time he acts weird,
put a camera on him,
is call into KFI and certainly say, well, my cat is weird. Let's wait and see what we get earthquake-wise around the world. Let's just see if it pans out.
Definitely. You've got to be on top of this. You want to predict the next earthquake.
Even better if your husband's home, right?
Yeah.
If he starts acting weird while we're on the air, definitely have him call in and tell us so we can prepare for something.
The cat or the husband? Yeah. If your husband do anything weird before
husband jumps up in the middle of the table.
Most of the time.
It's like, get him out of here.
Just running around in circles. Doesn't everybody's husband act like that? The only other cat I can think of recently that's like this, supposedly, is this cat.
The death predicting one?
The death predicting cat that sidles up to people in the retirement homes and they die like hours later.
Yeah,
have you heard about that cat, John?
Well, yeah, because they smell some chemical in the body that's getting released as you die.
Oh, and they like the chemical? Why would the cat want to snuggle with somebody with that chemical?
I don't know. I think sometimes they want to provide comfort. I mean, dogs and cats do that when they know you're in trouble. They want to help out. So I'm thinking the cat is picking up some kind of like death stink.
The best story about that cat was that the nurses and stuff thought this one person was near death, and they put the cat in the room, and the cat kept scratching on the door to get out. So the third time they let it out, and he ran down the hall to somebody else's room, and sure enough, that
person died. I remember that. You're right. The one didn't die that they thought was dying.
That's right.
This
Not
is in
ready
Wisconsin
yet.
too, isn't it?
No, I think it's like South Dakota or someplace like that. I'm not positive.
No, because I've always heard about dogs and cats acting wacky, a few minutes before the quake, and you're figuring that it's picking up tiny tremors, the advanced tremors.
Oh, you think that's what it is?
That's what I'm thinking, but how would you be able to feel tiny tremors for a Haiti quake?
I don't know.
Or a Chilean quake. That makes no sense.
Some sort of pre-quake tremors?
I don't know, because I'm sure it's not like an instinct or an intelligence thing, because he's not very bright.
And let's face it, these are the exceptions and not the rules. Most animals do just lie there.
Yeah.
All
right, I know, but we have three's a trend, though.
Well, yeah, that's why I thought of her cat last night. I said, I wonder what Terry Ray Elmer's cat did. Now I know his name is Ron. So now I know
what's Ron say. In fact, we don't need to see, what's her name, Lucy Jones? Or
what's Ron say? Dodgers, 1970s. That was good. What does Ron say? It's Jeopardy. All right, well, we just got back from a week off. And I have to say, I went to New York. And, John and I know New York well because, obviously, we spent time there growing up on the East Coast. New York City. Every time I go in the last 5 years, Manhattan itself is so much remarkably better than it was in the 80s and early 90s. It's always astounding to me. And you go in the subways now, John, and you know what's funny? They did a feature piece on the last homeless guy left in Times Square.
I saw that.
Yeah.
The guy is named Heavy.
Heavy. Yeah. I didn't see him. I was in the Times Square area. I didn't see him, but I saw the story on the news, and I'm like, they're down to one homeless guy.
They go every night and count the homeless that are sleeping on the sidewalk, and I think 5 years ago they were down to 55. A year ago they were down to 7. Now they're down to 1, and what they do is they convince them to go to the city homeless warehouse.
Oh.
They really have warehouses now with homeless people stacked up in them. And they've convinced everybody but one guy.
They go out every night?
They go out, every night.
Just the Times Square area, I think. Isn't it? Not the whole city, right?
Because when I was a kid, once you got your driver's license, that was the big dare. You want to go drive to Times Square. That's what we would do to frighten ourselves when we were 17.
And hookers and
disgusting
homeless and
people
drug addicts.
People selling you drugs openly on the street. Prostitutes openly soliciting on the street, and it was just one porn palace after the next, and X-rated movie theaters, and drug holes, and Fleabag, Fleabag motels that sold beds by the hour. Ew. It was really disgusting, and to park your car at the Port Authority parking lot, and then walk through Times Square. That's how you proved you were a man.
And, I don't want to overemphasize this, but when I go there, the subways are clean. Actually, the people down there, and this was even like late in the day, were like religious people, all dressed nice. They're handing out pamphlets for some wacky religion or something. And there were all sorts of people dressed up with those little red vests that they're the little helpful agents. If you have a question, I'm like, wow. I mean, when I was working here in the 70s and 80s, it was disgusting down here. Imagine how. But, of course, when I got there, I picked up the paper, and they've had 20-something murders this year. They're worried that they're trending back up in crime. And apparently over the weekend, a bunch of kids went crazy. They went running through Times Square, and 4 people were shot. Apparently they do this every year. There's an auto show in New York City at the convention center. And if it coincides with Easter Sunday, it's a very violent weekend. People just run on rampages.
Why?
On Easter?
If Easter Sunday coincides with the auto show in New York. And I don't know why this happens.
That's as wacky as Terry Ray's cat.
Sometime after the auto show closes at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, people go rampaging through Times Square, and last night there were shootings, and 4 people were shot. Most people only shot in the ankle or the elbow. One woman got shot in the elbow. She's like, can you imagine getting shot in the elbow?
Oh, I bet that would hurt.
Yeah, that really hurt.
Anywhere would hurt, but that would really hurt.
It gets you right on that funny bone, yeah.
Some sort of ritual that started a few years back.
Ritual, really?
Yeah, a ritual like at Halloween, have that wild night before Halloween.
A religious auto ritual.
I have no idea.
I don't understand.
All right, when we come back, we'll come back to L.A., and while we were away, a standoff has developed between the L.A. City Council and the Department of Water and Power over those outrageous rate hikes that the mayor and the DWP is proposing. We'll give you the update, and then we'll tell you just how out of control the mayor and the City Council and the spending has been the last several years in L.A.
All coming up on the John and Ken Show, KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio. John and Ken Show, John Cobelt and Ken Champeau.
Well, we've been telling you about this story and the real story behind it for quite some time now. You see, the city of L.A. is hundreds of millions of dollars in deficit position. And they kind of just ran out of ways to get the money from you. All right? They went into the garbage tax, right? And they had the phone tax. All these ideas to grab money from L.A. city taxpayers, of course, raising parking fines and all the crap they did with that with the traffic. But they just ran out of ideas. So they said, I tell you what, here's the latest idea. Let's go to our little cash cow, our ATM, the Department of Water and Power, and will just raise rates over there so they can transfer more money to the city of L.A. That was their plan, their goal, and suddenly the mayor says, got to do this by April 1st, all right? Because the state of California has the Global Warming Final Solutions Act, and if we don't start going green really fast, we're going to be fined hundreds of millions of dollars. So we got to jump on this right away. Big rate hikes, got to come by April 1st. When what was really going on is he wanted to feed the spending beast, the city of L.A. General Fund, because they just ran out of other ways to get money to that fund.
We've had over 2 years of recession, and they still have yet to lay off any city workers. Instead, they've added more city workers.
And we're going to talk about
during
that
the recession.
Yeah, after the news at 2:30, the Times did a story about just how oblivious, ignorant, and maybe on purpose they were to what was going on with the economy just a couple of years ago when they continued to hire people and hand out raises.
They're not oblivious. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care because they figure they can always jack up taxes one way or the other. They came up with a fake garbage tax and a fake phone tax. And
they raised all the parking fines. They're doing everything they can to try to find money, looking under the couch cushions. But they thought, let's go to the big cash cow, though. Let's get a DWP rate hike, and we can get more money that way.
I'm looking at this Wall Street Journal article because even national publications are starting to examine this Los Angeles situation. And what I object to in all this coverage is the premise that the DWP is running out of money and at some point we all have to pay more for electricity. No. The DWP has $220 million in profit that it gives to the city of L.A. to feed the union beast.
And they apparently have $1 billion in their accounts.
$1 billion in savings. There is no shortage of money. They run a big profit. They give the profit away to the city. Period. End of story. Because even the Wall Street Journal here is claiming, the DWP says it's going to run out of money. No, that is complete and total fiction.
So when we left the show over a week ago, we said, looks like the last line of defense against these massive rate hikes, which could, for some businesses, be over 30% over the next couple of years, would be the city council. And what happened last week, and you probably know this by now, the city council voted for a smaller rate increase. The DWP came back and said, nope, we want a bigger rate increase than that, and that's that. They folded their arms. City council said, well, you're not getting that. And apparently with the standoff, now nothing happens with rate hikes for like 90 days, 3 months. Which is kind of a victory for ratepayers right now.
The DWP wanted, businesses almost a 30% increase.
37, I think, would have been the high end of that.
Yeah, and there should be no increase at all. In the Wall Street Journal, it says here both sides agree. That's the city council and the DWP. Both sides agree the utility will need more revenue, making substantial increases likely later this year. What do you mean both sides? They're on the same side. That's the same team. The city council and the DWP are the same guys.
So the DWP is threatening to withhold $73.5 million in money that they would switch over to the city's spending beast by the end of the fiscal year. That was what they were holding hostage. They claimed weeks ago that they would not transfer that money unless they got their rate hike. And since last week, the outcome is no rate hike for 90 days. They're again saying they're not going to transfer the money over. And now apparently this afternoon, the Los Angeles Comptroller Wendy Gruhl says the entire city general fund, the spending beast, will be completely out of money by May 10th.
So where is the massive layoffs that they should have done months ago? I hope they all go out of – I hope that whole city goes dark. Whole city government should go dark on May 10th if they're out of money.
She sent the DWP a letter on Friday and said you have to give us the money, and he sent her a letter today saying, no, we're not giving it to you because you didn't give us the rate increase.
Have you heard of anything more ridiculous? And of course,
that $73 million ought to go back to the ratepayers. That's $73 million excess dollars the DWP got. I don't understand why nobody publicly is talking about this except us. They're fighting over $73 million in excess rate increases that belong back with us, the ratepayer. The DWP doesn't deserve it. Wendy Gruhl doesn't deserve it. Tony Villar, the city council, none of these people deserve it. It's our money. It's excess electricity costs.
I'm surprised in that the Wall Street Journal reporter does mention that the DWP is threatening to withhold the $73 million. But why don't they dig deeper into the story and say, well, if the DWP is raising rates, why are they transferring hundreds of millions of dollars over to the LA City General Fund if they have this much money to transfer?
That's what I'm saying.
Nobody's really asking the obvious question.
Nobody's questioning the stupid premise. That they should not have been doing this money laundering scheme to begin with, and they've been doing it forever.
Here's the number, John. You want to hear this? This will knock you off your chair. Since 1992, the DWP has given the city spending beast $2.7 billion collected from electric bills.
$2.7 billion?
Yeah, since 1992. Over the last 18 years, that's the total money. It's almost $3 billion.
Somebody ought to go to court and say, you've overcharged us by $2.7 billion.
Absolutely, you're right.
I want a rebate.
We ought to get $2.5 billion worth of refunds here.
I don't know why, this is so obvious why reporters aren't more on this story.
It doesn't make any sense. Why are they accepting that
Instead,
over an 18-year period?
Yeah, the journal article's all about the renewable energy and the Global Warming Final Solutions Act, and the city has to comply with that act and start switching away from coal and towards renewable fuels, and they'll need to collect a lot more money from ratepayers to go green, and blah, 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 blah.
And it is all blah, 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 blah.
You had $3 billion to do this if you didn't give it all to the spending beast the last 18 years, and the Global Warming Act has been around for almost 4 years. Got plenty of time.
No, it's all because it's all fake cover stories. They want you to start arguing about the green energy, and then you won't be pointing out that they shouldn't have been given the $2.7 billion to begin with.
No, yeah, because
Because every minute we're arguing about green energy is a minute that we're not telling people about the $2.7 billion that they stole.
Less so than they used to, but most people read the story and go, well, yeah, they're going green. I understand. And that's probably going to cost money to go green. But the way the economy is right now, I don't even think people are in the mood to deal with that.
What does that mean, go green? What does it mean specifically in this case? Because if they are using extra money from us because they're going to buy electricity at higher rates from wind and solar sources. Because right now, to buy the excess energy, Eric Leonard is explaining all this, to buy the excess energy is going to cost more money. The wind energy is more expensive than the coal energy. So I don't understand how going green helps anybody if it's going to be more costly to buy this wind energy. Wind energy has never been cheaper than coal energy. Never in the history of the world. Not for one day. And not any time in our lifetime will wind energy be cheaper than coal energy.
I think what they're saying is it doesn't matter if it's not cheaper. It's better for the environment and for the greenhouse gases, and the state is telling us we have to do it.
That's another premise that's faulty. The whole greenhouse gas global warming hoax.
Well, that's where a lot of this comes from.
You can't accept their premises. Their premises are wrong. Their premises are about controlling our lives and taking our money. That's the proper premise.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about how the city of L.A. ignored what the rest of us knew. The economy was sinking as they continued to spend money and hire people, even right through like 2008. We'll talk about it when we come back.
All coming up on the John and Ken Show. John and Ken Show. John Cobalt and Ken Champeau back together.
Yeah, everybody's here. Terry Ray, John, Ken. After 3 o'clock, Tiger Woods, too. This time it was a news conference of sorts. There were questions posed by reporters of sorts. We'll give you what there is to say about it after 3 o'clock. And if you want to play the poll question, it's new to johnandken.com. Do you think Tiger Woods will cheat again?
At golf or on his wife?
Is there proof he cheated at golf? He said he did not take the steroids. Isn't that good enough if Tiger says so?
If Tiger says so? I don't know. Ask Elin. Does she believe what Tiger says?
Oh, you might want to clarify that, Misty Heckler, and make it, will Tiger Woods cheat on his wife again? Good point, John. 83% right now are picking yes, he will.
Oh, I think he will. What's he going to do now? I mean, she's not showing up at the golf tournament this week.
No.
They don't have a marriage.
Well, I think they decided that was going to be too much of a media cluster if she starts walking around with the gallery of fans. I don't know.
Carrying one of the kids.
I can kind of understand why she wouldn't be there. But you're saying it's because she doesn't support him, right?
I think she hates every cell in his body. How's that?
And you know what I found funny? Just to comment a bit. Tiger was just talking about how, the 24-hour news media and the coverage and blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You're one of the most famous athletes in the world and you had 16 mistresses? Come on. That qualifies as a big story. Don't try to make it sound like it's just a media obsession because they have to fill the time.
Never heard a bitch about that 24/7 media environment when he was building his billion-dollar empire.
They've been harassing him and his family.
Yeah, when they cover...
And the other players he mentioned.
Yeah.
They'd stop asking the other players questions. Now they can ask me.
They would cover...
Which I won't answer anyway.
They would cover every hole of every tournament that he played in. every year for, 15 years now. Never bitched about all that coverage.
Well, because it was positive coverage.
Well, I know, John, you know that golf tournament over in Brentwood, people would go and people would get tickets, and they would only go on the day that he was going to...
Oh, the Riviera?
Yeah, the Riviera.
Yeah.
Just to see him. The only reason they went over there.
Well, because golf is incredibly boring to watch. And I know because for 3 years I was a golf writer for a sports for the sports department at a newspaper back in New Jersey. And they gave me the golf beat because I was 17 years old. Holy crap, there's nothing more boring in creation than covering golfers. Honest to God. They are the dullest men alive. They have nothing to say. I'd rather, and it's not even that they're stupid, although, a lot of them are, it's that they're dull. I mean, I covered hockey, and hockey players are the stupidest animals on the planet, but they're characters. They're interesting. These guys are unbelievably eye-wateringly dull. I used to get drunk at the golf tournament. It was so boring because they always have like a tent open for the reporters where they gave you everything to eat and drink, and all the reporters just sat there and drank all day because there was nothing else to do. What are you going to watch a guy hit a ball in a hole?
He had it good compared to me. My first year in radio, I had to cover high school athletes. You want to know what that's like? Wow. Talk about nothing to say.
Well, yeah, but I always gave them a break because, they were 17 years old. These are guys, fully formed, 25, 30 years old.
It wasn't I had to give them a break. I still had to do a story, and when you interview them, there's just nothing coming out. Not even a cliche.
It was like talking.
I would have taken a cliche from them rather than just, okay, thanks. We played. So we'll talk about Tiger, and you can take the poll question. It's coming up in the big 3 o'clock hour. We're talking about this long-running scam, which we told you before the break. Since 1992, the Department of Water and Power has given the city spending beast, that's the city general fund, $3 billion of your electric bill money. $3 billion. And now the standoff is DWP is saying we're not going to give you this year's last portion, $73.5 million, unless you give us our huge rate hikes. And, of course, last week the city council decided not to give the DWP the higher rate hike it wanted, which led to a standoff, which means nothing happens for 90 days now, which will take us almost to the end of the year. I guess it would take us to the end of the fiscal year.
You can't imagine the hosing. This is like the mafia, because the DWP wants to hike up the rates tremendously, keep some of the money, give some of it to its fat, overpaid union employees, then give some to the city, and they're going to use it to pay their fat, overpaid union employees. This has nothing to do with green energy. This has everything to do with satisfying two unions, the unions at the DWP and the unions that run City Hall.
I still wonder if the fix is in, because now the stories are coming out today. Oh, the city's going to be in dire financial straits unless we get that $73.5 million.
Oh.
So eventually I can see the city council going, what can we do? It's a voluntary transfer. If we don't get it, the city stars will have to give them their rate increase. Sorry, ratepayer. I can still see this happening.
Well, of course, like the big, huge tax increase in Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right.
They always claim that there's some kind of deadline and then bad things are going to happen. And they make stuff up. They lie, but the idiot reporters repeat the lies without checking to see if it's really true. And what they ought to do, in fact, what was the line I read in the story today, that Wendy Gruhl story, that, things are so bad, we're going to run through the reserve fund by the end of June. Right? They're going to be out of money on May 10th. They got a reserve that's going to last them about 6-7 more weeks. Then on June 30th, they're really at zero. No reserve fund, nothing in the general fund. And the reporter said, what are you going to do? And one of the councilmen said, well, I don't know. Because, even if we laid off people, it would take too long before that savings would kick in. Can you imagine that? What do you mean? Why don't you lay them off now? Give them a one-day notice saying, you know what, as of tomorrow, you have no more stupid city job. And you'll save 3 months of pay here. April, May, June. Yeah, you'll save 3 months of pay.
Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, this story in the L.A. Times from late last week goes back to 2007 when a different city controller, Laura Chick, said that the reserve fund is depleted and the city may have a $215 million shortfall. And you know what they were doing then? They were negotiating a brand new contract with city employees, which eventually led to pay raises. And they were still hiring. It says in this story that 3,000 workers were added to the city payroll during the decade of the 2000s. That takes us all the way through 2009. And we all know that sometime in 2006, 2007, things were looking pretty grim economically. And Villaraigosa even says in this story, well, if we had only known, if we knew there was going to be a fiscal meltdown, we would not have okayed these contracts.
Well, why would you give them huge contract raises anyway? Again, I object to the premise. Why do they deserve huge raises? One of the union officials hailed the 2007 agreement as the best contract in 40 years. The best contract in 40 years. Why did we give them the best contract in 40 years? Whether it was good times or bad times.
You know what's even amazing about that? They didn't get that deal in 2007. That's when they started negotiating. The deal wasn't completed until just 6 months ago, because I think the woman at the city that was negotiating with the unions resigned her position, and there were all sorts of delays, and people folded their arms for a while. They just got this completed deal 6 months ago, and unions are exempt from layoffs and furloughs until July 1. That is part of the agreement.
Well, no wonder they can't save any money with layoffs.
They can't do it
June
right
30th.
now. Right, John. All the times you've been hearing them talking about laying off 4,000 city workers, they were talking about effective July 1.
So they actually signed a contract that gave them layoff protection?
Yeah.
Oh, screw them.
Just like the state workers did with Schwarzenegger until the legislature didn't okay the deal. Remember that deal? Schwarzenegger was exempting them from layoffs.
Oh, you know what? We should dig a hole and bury all these city council members, and then I want to crap on their graves. Oh, that's just ridiculous. Good Lord.
That's a nice visual. Yeah. And it's the usual. Politicians always do the same thing. Villaraigosa. If we'd only known then what we know now, that there's going to be economic collapse, we were told there was going to be 4% growth in revenue.
I want to turn to our drunken city administrative officer, Miguel Santana.
Remember, yeah, the guy was stopped for a DUI.
He was stopped for a DUI, but they're still using him to count the numbers. And
well, he's actually been one of the more sane people in all this.
Well, that's the thing, and it's driving him to drink, literally. Santana said if you look in the context of our $4 billion budget, this year's drop in revenue, because of the recession, is not insurmountable. It's $184 million. Now, out of $4 billion, that's not a lot. That's less than 5%.
But he added, it's significant, though, if you're living by the skin of your teeth. And the city's been doing what the state's been doing, budget tricks over the years. And they've been trying to sell city property. And as I mentioned before, they're increasing parking meter and trash fees. And now they're trying to grab more money from DWP by getting a rate hike out of you. You're right. They have to stop the tricks and lay off thousands of workers because it's too much money.
But you have a former union organizer, Tony Villar, running the city. And so his first instinct, his emotional instinct, is to serve the unions. Here, guys, look, I'm in charge now. I'll give you the big pot of money you've always wanted. And he did. And that's not rational. And they know that, but they don't care. They don't make rational decisions. They're not there to make rational decisions. They're there to reward their buddies. And Villar's buddies and the buddies of all the city council member are the unions.
Yeah. And what are the chances somebody walks in and says, all right, we're not taking any more money from DWP. We're laying off 10,000 workers that we can't afford anymore, and we're going to restore some sort of fiscal sanity to the city's revenues and their budgeting. Think that'll happen? No, it won't. I'll bet you in the end the ratepayers get boned. I bet you in the end the city council goes along with some sort of massive rate hike to keep the money flowing in.
You got to make a big stink to the city council members if you live in Los Angeles. You got to make a huge stink to them because normally nobody covers this stuff. Yeah, it gets an article in the LA Times, but who notices that?
All right, we got to take a break. Toll-free number 1-800-520-1534.
This is the John and Ken Show. KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio.
KFI AM640.
John and Ken Show. John Cobalt and Ken Champeau. Oh, it's a very exciting day because, Tiger Woods spoke today.
Tiger!
The guy who hits the ball into the hole. Yeah, he spoke. Everybody was very excited.
We'll have some segments of his press conference to play for you after 3 o'clock with our analysis. But
and the poll question on johnandken.com.
Yes, will Tiger Woods cheat again? So far, let's see, is it still running? Yeah, 83-16, 83-17, I should say, that he will cheat again on his wife.
Because he's in an interesting period. What happens when you've been caught cheating by the wife, right, and the wife has run off? Now, do you sit at home and you just don't entertain yourself anymore? There's no more dating. There's no more hookers. There's no more nothing? Well, you become a monk? All that desire pent up inside of him?
He's found a new way to channel it.
What happened?
He wouldn't really explain, what sort of therapy he was in.
What kind of rehab was that, Tiger?
Didn't really get into that, but
it's the old five-finger therapy. That's the only other way out.
Oh,
well, there's nothing else.
Gotta hand it to you. It's a good one. All right, so we'll get into that after 3 o'clock. Something I just found in this L.A. Times story about how the city of L.A. ignored the dire economic times back even just a few years ago and continued to hire people and spend more money is contained in a quote, John, from probably the one city official that we have really, really just can't stand over the years. He's been on the show several times. I remember one time he came on to debate Special Order 40 with us.
I know which ass you're speaking of.
Well, this ass is the last quote in the story, and believe it or not, when this ass makes the most sense, it tells you just how upside down things are. And I'm talking about now City Councilman Bernard Parks, who used to be chief of L.A. Police. And he said, every time there's a discussion about reducing the workforce, laying off workers, like there is now, we have these elected officials who look for money to make it go away. I mean, he makes sense. He's right, and apparently he's been one of the few that have actually said we got to get serious about laying off thousands of city employees. Every year we come into this debate. Every year we don't do it. And what kills me is, and this is important to know, the unions turn around, they go, oh, no, all right, we understand that there's hard times in the city. Here, we got an idea. How about early retirement for our employees? Yeah, I'll bet you thousands will take advantage of that, and you can just move them off the city books because they won't be under current payroll anymore. Well, guess what? You're moving them over to the retirement side. We still got to pay for them.
You're going to be depleting the pension fund.
Exactly. They act like this is a great deal for the city because it relieves the general fund of hundreds of millions of dollars in payroll. But that doesn't mean it goes away. The taxpayers are still on the hook for the retirement money.
You know something? I see quotes in this story where, they ran an idea for one thing or another. They wanted to get the workers to contribute to their pensions. Imagine that. Imagine it requiring workers to contribute to their pensions. And that crook Tony Villar said the unions weren't ready to negotiate. They were talking about it, but they didn't want to pay for it. And I'm thinking, all right, so the unions say no. What do you say no to? I always hear this thing, well, the unions are powerful. Oh, the unions say no to that. Well, the unions won't discuss that. It's like, really? How about you representing the people instead of the unions, and you telling the unions no? Because let them go on strike. Let them go on strike. What's going to happen? The cops and firefighters, first of all, won't go on strike because they're not permitted to. Well, so what are we going to lose here if everybody else goes on strike?
Yeah, I don't know. They're talking about they're going to run out of money by June 30th, so maybe they will have to go on strike. Won't be paid. What
pisses me off is, the L.A. Times goes to the usual suspects that they love to quote here. Guy named Jack Kaiser. I've heard that name ever since I've moved here. Jack Kaiser.
Yes,
Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation economist. And they're asking him, why does the city do this? And he says, it's a head-scratcher. If you know that tough times are coming, you should be ultra cautious. You've had ongoing warnings about the magnitude of the downturn, and they haven't been listening.
It's not a head-scratcher.
No, it's not a head-scratcher.
This is what politicians do when they're beholden to unions.
The city council and Tony Villar are hoard out to the unions. Why does everybody sit there? And economists, I read some fascinating stories recently. Economists have based all their theories on what's going to happen, assuming that people make rational decisions. And there's now a new wave of economic theory which is much closer to the truth. People don't make rational decisions. And economists are stuck in this old mindset from decades ago. Well, if everybody works in their best interest, here's what's going to happen. People don't work in their best interest. People run up huge debts because they want immediate gratification. It's not in their best interest to have immediate gratification. But that's why they run up huge credit card debts. That's why they have huge mortgages, big car payments. Well, it's the same thing with the government. There's nobody acting rationally when they're bought and paid for and hoard out to the unions. They think they're being rational because the unions give them the money to get reelected every 2 years or every 4 years. So what do you think they do? They do whatever the unions say.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about Tiger Woods and his news conference. You can take our poll at johnandken.com as to whether or not you think Tiger has learned the error of his ways and will never cheat on his wife again. And we'll play some of the clips from his news conference next.
This is the John and Ken Show. Terry Railmer has the news now. KFI AM640, more stimulating talk radio.
Monday, April 5th.
Hey, you in the pants. Thanks for listening. KFI.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
News on the hour, on the half, and when it breaks.
Today was just something that really touched my heart pretty good.
Tiger Woods says a crowd at the Masters in Augusta, Georgia has been incredibly supportive.
The galleries couldn't be nicer. I mean, it was just incredible. And the encouragement that I got, and it was just, it blew me away.
Well, except for this fan.
I'm not a Tiger fan.
Okay.
So I don't care if he wins. I actually would like to see him play bad.
And this woman says it's going to get rough for Tiger, and he deserves it.
I do think he's a good golfer, but I think he deserves some of the bad press that he's going to get.
Jean Dolphin says if she was Woods' wife, she'd run like the wind. At a news conference at the Masters, Woods said Elin will not be at the golf tournament. He did say he will win his 5th green jacket. The doctor charged with involuntary manslaughter in the death of Michael Jackson has been assigned a new judge. Dr. Conrad Murray was in court today downtown for a date for his preliminary hearing. Murray's lawyers are also fighting to keep his California medical license. State Attorney General Jerry Brown's trying to get it taken away till the trial's over. The city of L.A. could be out of money by next month.
Well, it's all because of the Department of Water and Power and its now refusal to hand over $73 million it owes the city in a promised transfer. City Controller Wendy Gruhl says without that money, the city will have to spend $90 million from its reserve accounts to make payroll through the end of the fiscal year.
Actually take money from the reserve fund, not borrow it, but take money from the reserve fund to put in our general fund so we will be able to pay our bills, to be able to pay our employees on May 5th.
The DWP canceled the transfer after the city